Absolutely shocking. A Chinese man over half 100 years old. Go deep into the Mongolian steppe. Encounter a tribe. The three sisters demanded that he must impregnate to continue the bloodline. Please subscribe to like before watching. It means a lot to us. Li Xinghao, a Chinese man over 50 years old. He had quite a success in a family. Work in the finance department of a medium-sized company. But his marriage had long since broken down. I have experienced many hardships in life. One day, he closed his business. Decided to travel the world before it was too late. He doesn't have much to do with his family, but never really left. The experience in China stimulated him even more. After the divorce, his heart was complicated and confused, but at the age of 50, he finally packed his bags. Embark on a trip to a foreign country. At first, he considered Southeast Asia or Europe. But suddenly, the Mongolian steppe, as seen in a documentary, clarity comes to mind. There, the horizon stretches to the ends of the earth. People still live a nomadic life. Is an untouched wilderness civilization. Li Xinghao wanted to devote himself to that landscape. He wanted to feel free in a strange place. An acquaintance told him, Mongolia except for the districts of the city. There are also vast grasslands, deserts, and rugged terrain. This makes travel difficult. However, the more he listened, the more curiosity grows. He happened to be in an online community. Met a Mongolian translator. The interpreter told him, in the western and northwestern regions, there are still a few minority tribes. There is little contact with the outside world. After Li Xinghao arrived in Ulaanbaatar, slowly start moving west. He rented a car for his own use. And from the translations and dictionaries he prepared in China, learned some of the most basic Mongolian greetings. He expects English to be very poorly prevalent, but he thinks there will always be a way around it. In Ulaanbaatar, after a few days of touring the small town near the Tua River, he ventured into more remote areas. As he moved away from the city, the roads are becoming more and more dilapidated. The cell phone signal is also gone. However, Li Xinghao felt more of a relief, and not anxiety. It seems like a busy life in China. Injuries sustained during the divorce process, and the eyes of the people are gone. Now only he and this vast land remain. After driving on an unpaved road for a few hours, a desolate scene suddenly unfolded. The wind is howling, dust flying, except for some ridges looming in the distance. There is no sign of any village. He brought with him a certain amount of food, water, and fuel for his vehicle. But he didn't know when or where a village will appear. A slight sense of dread crept in. He could be isolated in the center of the steppe. However, from the moment he left, just know it's a dangerous trip. A wolf or wild dog roaming the steppe. Unpredictable weather. None of the accidents of getting lost are easy. The picture of Li Xinghao opening in the car again. Find a place where a known place name may appear. But he even lost his sense of accurate positioning, bedazzled by the rugged terrain. Drop a needle in this piece. Are hard to find on the desolate plains. He decided to trust his instincts. Keep moving. One day, in the afternoon, after another half a day, he saw what seemed to be small dots in the distance. Take a closer look. It seems to be a group of several yurts. Small settlements. Li Xinghao was exhausted by the hot sun. But to see the sight, he breathed a sigh of relief. If it is a yurt inhabited by a group of Mongolian nomads, he can at least find a place for people to sleep and sleep. When he drove closer, he saw about 8 yurts scattered around. Goats and sheep graze nearby. People glanced at him. Li Xinghao slowly got out of the car. Say hello to them in clumsy Mongolian. He tried to say hello to them in English. Hope English can be understood. But the reaction was a bit awkward. But it's not an atmosphere that completely drives away strangers. Several men walked in and motioned for him to come along. That night, he showed himself to be Chinese through clumsy communication. Traveling. The villagers seemed surprised and provided him with roast lamb and milk tea. Li Xinghao is very grateful. He gave them some Chinese snacks and small souvenirs to take with you. Clumsily expressed his kindness. The village is a very small tribe. They called themselves Sarin, and say that they have been for a long time. It has always been centered on this area. Lives a nomadic life. Lee Sung-ho couldn't understand the details, but he passed through Mongolian, mixed with some English words and their gestures. Roughly guessed their existence. There are almost no young men in the village. Most of them are children, middle-aged and elderly women and the elderly. That night, while he slept on one side of the yurt, he wondered why there were no young men. They may have left the city to look for work. Or there may be other reasons. Lee Sung-ho just went with the flow. There are no particular doubts. He still wanted to stay here for a day or two, then leave. The next morning, the villagers suggested that he accompany him around the village. But Lee Sung-ho refused, gesturing to show him the well and areas for grazing animals, although not fully translated into words. Then, in front of a yurt, he found something he hadn't expected. 3 young women. They all seemed to be in their early 20s, much younger than Lee Sung-ho. They look alike, but everyone exudes a different charm. The first one has thick black hair, half dyed up. It looks tall and calm. The second has brown hair, impressive bright smile, seems to be very lively. The third has neat braids, quietly exchanged glances. Later he learns that these 3 are sisters. Their names are Zargala, Ayun and Narain, a middle-aged woman in the village. It seems that Lee Sung-ho is being introduced to the sisters. When Lee Sung-ho greeted them, the 3 sisters looked at him with curious expressions and smiled. Especially the second sister Ayun blurted out the short English word hello. Lee Sung-ho replied hello. Nice to meet you. There was a burst of laughter. It seems that English will not be fully understood, but basic greetings are fine. That's it. She naturally had the opportunity to talk to her sisters. Zargala speaks little to no English, so it's hard to translate. But Ayun helped a little. He had been to Ulaanbaatar for a short time as a child. Exposure to the English language. Third sister, that person is very shy. Barely speaks. But she looked at a stranger like a stranger. Looked at Lee Sung-ho. That afternoon, Lee Sung-ho with his sisters visited a nearby ranch. They also watched as villagers drove their livestock. Over the steppe, Ayun in simple English explained the life of the village. He mentions that there are very few men. Most of the young men left. And tell me little by little the ancient traditions of this village. Lee Sung-ho was curious. So how do you get married and have children? Ayun had a subtle expression, replied with a smile. Our tribe has a special custom. Sometimes we have an affair with a foreign man to reproduce offspring. It's hard to say in the details. Zargala was also next to him, muttered to each other in Mongolian. Then he showed a shy smile at Li Xinghao. That moment, Li Xinghao felt a chill. There is a kind of affection with a foreign man, and the custom of having children. And there are 3 sisters here. There are almost no young men in the village. He had a ridiculous imagination. They may want to ask him to do something similar. However, he just took it as a joke. Is such a thing really going to happen? Originally, Lee Sung-ho's plan was to stay in the village for a day or 2, then continue west. However, the villagers showed hospitality, and he wanted to communicate with Ayun little by little at the same time. Have more interesting stories? So, he decided to stay longer, check the car and stock up on some supplies. In addition, the weather in the steppes is unpredictable. So, it's also a good thing to take a break for a while. And so it went for a few days. Lee Sung-ho and the 3 sisters become even closer. None of the 3 are married. Among the remaining young women of the family, the most hopeful, as the eldest daughter, Zargara, responsible and faithful, livestock management and household chores ordered by tribal elders. Lively Ayun, be curious about the outside culture and city life. So he kept asking Li Xinghao something about China. And look at the photos stored on his phone. The youngest was quiet, but often with a gentle smile and a lovely tone. Let Ayun translate. The 3 sisters invite Lee Sung-ho to the yurt every day, or around the village. Let him sit next to them. Show him all sorts of things. He looked in awe. Watched the way to ride a horse or a goat. the structure of the interior of a yurt, the process of handling firewood, and the process of making traditional Mongolian food. It was the first time he had experienced it. Among them, Zargala gave detailed guidance to Li Xingho. Impressive. As the eldest daughter, she tried to explain Li Xingho step by step. Loved for Zargala's calm attitude. One day, in a random meeting, many village women and some elderly people appeared, looking at Li Xingho, and a scene that erupts in laughter. Li Xingho didn't know why, but it seems they were talking about something. Ayun, who was standing next to him, said with a smile, "Foreign men are precious here, especially since there are almost no young men. The villagers think you're amazing." Li Xingho smiled awkwardly, nodding. However, Ayun is frank and says if you allow it, we could be in our village. A special ceremony is held, and have children. This confused Li Xingho. For a moment, her heart sank, because she understood what that meant. Although it is too early to make hasty assumptions, but she always felt that her sisters might want her company, and hoped to have children. A few days later, Li Xingho was invited to the yurt of the three sisters. Until then, he mainly lives in a gur for a middle-aged couple. But the sisters demanded him tonight in their yurt for a long talk. Zargala uses ingredients that are hard to come by in the city. A special soup was prepared. This soup is filled with lamb and vegetables. It tasted better than he could have imagined. This made a deep impression on Li Xingho. After the meal, Li Xingho and the three sisters drink tea in a slightly dimly lit yurt, had a lively conversation. Ayun is in charge of the translation. Then Zargala looked meaningful, looking at Li Xingho, cautiously opened his mouth. Hereinafter, it is something that is roughly conveyed in English through Ayun. The village has a very old family tradition. Due to the absolute lack of men in number, when an outside man comes in, he will be treated with a certain kindness. If the man likes him, three sisters or two sisters and a few other women will be in a relationship with this man at the same time and have children. If the man wants to, he can stay in the tribe or leave. At all costs, children are the responsibility of the woman and the village community. Men don't have to feel it. Staying in the village with your own children is a burden. Of course, if you stay because you feel responsible, the atmosphere would be better. Li Xingho couldn't believe it when he heard the story. Is there really such a custom? Some people in the world have heard of it, even in some remote areas of Mongolia. Occasionally, this happens. But when he experienced it directly, he felt very unreal. But Zargala added that we are three sisters. Each of us lives alone. In fact, it is difficult to live without a family of young men. I know it's going to be a burden for you, but it would be nice if we could have children together. This is indeed a bold proposal. Not one. Rather, all three sisters wanted to have his child. Li Xingho felt embarrassed. And say to myself that I am in my 50s. This is simply not possible in China. Also, I don't know if I really have a baby. How to be held accountable? Ayun said after hearing this. We can't force you to stay here. It's just an option. If you need to, you can live with us. Or you can leave. That's how we've always lived. He had already anticipated something, but I was still shocked when I heard it. The three sisters had a slightly shy expression. Looking at Li Xingho, the man seemed to be quietly bowing his head. The ears are slightly red. All three of them have beautiful appearances and a healthy look. When wearing traditional Mongolian clothing, exudes an exotic charm. Unbelievable. Such sisters want him to have children at the same time, and it's a custom that is allowed in the village. Li Xingho sighed and said, I can't refuse. But I can't take it right away. This proposal is too unusual. Zargala nodded and said, such a proposal will not be made to foreigners. In fact, a long time ago, there is an outsider. Got a child in this way. And left. But since then, no man has come in a long time. So we don't want to miss this opportunity either. Don't feel burdened, Ayun said. If you really don't want to, you can leave as you do now. Zhang Xuanjia hesitated. Ask for some time. The three sisters understood. Please stay longer. Think about it, he said. However, the atmosphere in the village seems to have been filled with anticipation. Like a foreign man finally made it into our family. He gives the impression that if he stays a few more days, naturally, weddings will take place. He had a complicated heart. First of all, he was not familiar with free love like Westerners. According to the Chinese way of thinking, it is ridiculous for a man to marry 3 sisters at the same time. In addition, she was worried if she did have a baby, how to take responsibility in the future. Of course, the tribe allowed men to leave. But Lee Sung-ho questioned whether or not to abandon the child he gave birth to, and the thought of leaving tormented. However, even in complete denial, Lee's own situation is also a problem. Back to China. He doesn't have any special relationship. There is also no stable job or wealth. If I settle here and start a new life, then adapting to the Mongolian language or lifestyle is not easy. But if family is built freely on the steppe, it's a unique choice. The 3 sisters are beautiful and showed hospitality to him. Lee Sung-ho already gets along well with them and secretly developed feelings for them. One day, Zargala quietly visited the yurt where he lived. It was after everyone was asleep. Zargala looked somewhat serious during the day, but when he spoke quietly at night, he was surprisingly candid. He said, "I know you're in your 50s, but this is not a problem in the village. There have been unions between women and older men. What we need is a healthy child to continue the family and trust a man." Holiness retorted, "Are you really okay? I'm old. My body may not be as healthy as it used to be." Zargala said with a smile, "I don't think you're good enough." After chatting with Zargala late into the night, Lee Sung-ho felt that his heart was gradually opening up. Among the 3 sisters, Zargala has a discreet and responsible charisma, just like the eldest daughter. If I were to stay here, I also want to imagine working with Zargara. Start a family. Come a few days after that, Ayun approached Lee Sung-ho more actively. Ayun speaks English, so he said it in a light-hearted way. "You can leave with me. We can go to town together." "I want to go to China," he suggested suddenly. He was very curious about what kind of place China was. Lee Sung-ho replied to this unexpected answer. "Be surprised." Asked, "Can you still give up this village?" Ayun smiled vaguely. Said that Zargala would protect the village. The man didn't know yet. "But I'm curious about cities and abroad." The man still didn't say much. But when Lee Sung-ho was nearby, his face will turn red very quickly. And then one day, when going to fetch water during the day, the man suddenly shook Lee Xinghao's hand, and in the case of just the 2 of them, smiled silently. Lee Sung-ho's heart was pounding. The man muttered quietly, "I like you too." The voice is small and soft. After all, there was no exchange of more specific words, but in that moment, his whole body was filled with excitement. He felt even without words. His heart was also conveyed. Lee Sung-ho eventually narrowed down his options to 2. First, she refuses the 3 sisters' request and leaves. They say it's hard to have children without men. The family will gradually decline. But she doesn't have to be held responsible. Secondly, they respect their customs and hold weddings. Even after that, they had children. Sisters and the village community will also take care of them. So you don't need to bear the burden. Of course, you can stay and live with them. Deep inside him, curiosity continues to grow, and a strange attraction. In his 50 years of life, he had never imagined anything like this. In China, it is very illegal to be in the middle of the road. And it is ridiculous for a man to marry 3 sisters at the same time. But here, it's a natural culture. In addition, the 3 sisters are all pure and beautiful. They are very likable in terms of human affection. Most importantly, Lee Sung-ho himself, tired of the old working life and married life, and want to find a new life. Then maybe that's fate. Eventually, he passed through Zargala, expressed his intentions to the 3 sisters. "If you really want to, and I can do it, I'll follow that custom." The 3 sisters were overjoyed when they heard these words, hugged him and covered his eyes. It's like a long-term task. It's been solved. Lee Sung-ho tried to remain calm on the surface, but his heart was pounding. What am I doing? Thoughts swept through his body. After that, the village elders immediately began to prepare. Originally, when such a wedding is held for a family, they will share the food. It's like a simple festival, playing traditional music and dancing. This case, it's a bit unusual. A situation in which a man marries three sisters at the same time. Rare. But that also means the family can be given a grand welcome. Someday, a large bonfire was lit in the middle of the steppe. Elderly people and women representing the family form a circle, sitting, beating drums and other percussion instruments, and recited the words of congratulations. The villagers gathered about 30 people. The three sisters surrounded Zhang Xingjie in the center. They wear coats that resemble traditional clothing, although there is no complicated decoration, but decorated with bright colors in the Mongolian style. The ceremony was not long. The old man simply said a few words of congratulations. The bride and groom bowed lightly to Lee Sung-ho. Then he took the cup around in a circle. Li Xinghao also drank one, a golden drink like the traditional wine of the village. His stomach became very hot. People clapped their hands, smile with anger. The drums are getting louder and louder. Mutton bread and milk tea were immediately served. It's like a simple love. There are also people dancing. The festival lasts until after sunset. Lee Sung-ho moved to the side of the village with the three sisters, prepared separately in a yurt. Several people have already come here and put it in order. They created a space that was large enough. Let three sisters live with a man. Zargara, start today. You will live with us, he said with a blushing face. Ayun said with a smile. From now on, we're family. Isn't that amazing? The man nodded quietly, but his eyes sparkled. As the night deepens, moonlight and lantern light flickered inside the yurt. The three sisters sat next to Lee Sung-ho in turn. One is in the Chinese way of thinking. Unimaginable night, Zargala said, looking at the book. We are subject to things like order, or the shadow of things like rules. It's not loud, but you just need to be considerate of the other person. I hope to have a baby, but not compulsively. Lee Sung-ho nodded with a nervous and excited heart. Thus began their cohabitation life. The first few days were unfamiliar and cautious, but gradually stabilized. The three sisters take turns spending the night with Lee Sung-ho. They also chatted together. Zargala has a sense of seriousness and guardianship. Ayun is full of energy and charisma. The man was shy, but suddenly gave him a friendly skin-to-skin kiss. For Lee Sung-ho, every day is a day of heartbeat. Not sure what to expect. About a month later, Holiness began to live with the sisters and actively participate in village affairs. When the sisters were mobilized to feed the livestock, when maintaining yurts, fetching water and harvesting herbs in the mountains, he also worked with them. In the process, he often hears people joking, "He is now completely our son-in-law." He also felt the atmosphere of the village. Try to accept him like a brother, regardless of age. Sometimes, Zargala will take Li Xinghao to the grassland to practice horseback riding. When he calmly mounted his horse and galloped on the steppe, the vast expanse of land and the sky seemed to merge into one. Lee Sung-ho recalls his time in China, the scene of being buried in a forest of high-rise buildings. He thought to himself that this was the first time he had felt so free. Zargala held the reins of the horse, the appearance next to him. It's both strong and wonderful. There was a calm pride on his face. Awan was always smiling. I often ask Li Xinghao if you have Chinese food. On your smartphone, show me Chinese pop music videos. Since there is no internet signal in the village, only saved files can be displayed. Ao Yoon watched the video with interest. I'm happy to say that I want to wear this too. Of clothes, Lee Sung-ho said, if I had the opportunity to go to China, I'll take you there. Wu Wen's eyes flashed. Shout yes. The man was still quiet, but sometimes when he is alone with Lee Sung-ho, he's going to be very cute. Especially when helping with firewood or doing laundry. They will come quietly. Hand over a small handkerchief. Say tired. Take a break. Whenever this happens, Lee Sung-ho will feel overwhelmed. All three are different, but they're all giving him care and love. One day, Zargala said, "He has been feeling nauseous and vomiting since the morning. At first I thought it was nothing, but after a day or two, I was examined by an old woman in the village. It turned out to be pregnant." Zargala was shocked like a bolt from the blue, but at the same time, she also had a relieved expression. Finally, a child was born. According to family traditions, this is a very good thing. In fact, Zargala herself has been waiting for the time to give birth. Zargala to Lee Sung-ho. A loving joke was made. "Say that you seem to have accepted your seed well." Lee Sung-ho was taken aback. "I was shocked to think if I really wanted to be a father." He thinks it's because he's old. So the probability is very low. But in front of the mysteries of nature, human calculations are useless. But this joy was short-lived. A few days later, Ayun complained of similar symptoms. Ayun said with a joking smile, "I wonder if I'm pregnant too." But when the old woman checked, it's really pregnant. "I can't believe it!" Li Xinghao was speechless for a while. Zargala and Ayun are confirmed to be pregnant. The time interval is only half a month. Sisters hugging each other, while massaging the abdomen, while cheering. A family celebration erupted. The youngest one is also on the left of the month. The right back was confirmed to be pregnant. It didn't take long. 3 sisters had children in a row. Lee Sung-ho himself couldn't believe it. It's possible, despite being in his 50s. But he didn't just have a child. There are also children of 3 sisters. "What a miracle, the sisters," he said, with tears in his eyes to express his gratitude. The villagers are immersed in the festive atmosphere. It is said that 3 children will come at a time. They held a party to catch cattle. The old people were delighted. It has been a long time since there has been such a golden age. Lee Sung-ho felt the world's attention was focused on him. It was embarrassing. But at the same time, he is also proud and responsible. "Ultimately, I'm making a huge difference to this tribe." In the early stages of pregnancy, they all experienced morning sickness, fatigue, and dizziness. Lee Sung-ho took care of them carefully. He cut back on all kinds of work and did your best to make sure the sisters had no difficulty with eating and follow the prenatal care methods taught by the village elders. Most importantly, in the setting of an inland village rather than a city hospital, received antenatal care for 3 pregnant women at the same time. It's very difficult, but this place has a kind of long-standing. In the absence of external health care, tips for performing childbirth. People are optimistic. Women who have been accepting children for decades. It can be without any major issues. Do it. The sisters seem to be filled with joy in their hearts. Although they complained that as their bellies gradually got bigger, there will be some discomfort. They get together every day to chat. Said we were going to have a baby soon. Lee Sung-ho talks to the 3 sisters every night. Will feel mixed emotions. When he is happy and excited. Do I really want to live here forever? This question keeps coming up. The sisters say you don't have to stay forever. But if in the years after the birth of the children, if only you could stay with us. It's too hard for you to handle it yourself. He said honestly. The man said shyly. I said at the beginning that you could leave. But actually all 3 of us want you to stay in the village. Lee Sung-ho was shaken. All right. I promise not to leave for the time being. A few more days passed. About in Zargara. Ayun and Narain were more than 45 months old. A natural disaster such as a sandstorm hit the village. The yurt shook in the depths, frightened and ran out. The sisters had to endure the chaos in a heavy state. Lee Sung-ho drove quickly, moved goats and sheep to a safe place, and removed the stones that rolled around the yurt. Carry out firefighting operations. Thanks to this, he did not suffer significant damage. Passed. But the sisters were very surprised, so much so that they go back and forth between life and death. That night, all 3 of them hugged Lee Sung-ho and muttered that without you, what will we do? Lee Sung-ho comforted his sisters and said, I will protect you, no matter what the situation in the world. I'll do my best. I cherish them even more. because each of the three was pregnant with a child. The whole village made it clear that they were dependent on him. Finally, the date of delivery is approaching. First of all, Zargala is in a state of fullness. Feel labor pains. Older women use simple methods of childbirth. Ready in the yurt, Li Shenghao's hands and feet trembled nervously. But when he saw Zargala, while struggling with great pain, he felt the need for what he could do. Luckily, an old woman with decades of experience, very good leader of the whole process. A few hours later, a baby's intense cry was heard. A baby was born. Zargala's hair was messed up with sweat, but she smiled as she held the baby. Li Sungho's eyes also became hot. Speechless. He may have had the memory of a childbirth in China. Comes to mind again. But now, it's in a completely different environment. A child born with a completely different woman. He was overwhelmed by infinitely small and mysterious lives. A few weeks later, Ayun went through a similar process. Gave birth to a child. Supposedly like his bubbly self. Even in labor pains. He'll also mix jokes and say, "Help me. I'm going to die." It made people laugh out loud. As soon as the baby is born, he almost lost his strength. But when the baby's cry is heard, he immediately came to his senses. "I can't believe it's my baby." Ayun stroked the baby's fingers. Tears flowed down his cheeks. Li Shenghao also watched nervously from the side this time. When it's all over safely, his legs were almost on his knees. Eventually, the youngest gave birth to a child. 3 babies were born with a 3-month time difference. The man was in labor pains. Didn't make much noise, because he doesn't have many words. Instead, he held back tears. Whenever the old women say, "You have to be more energetic. Don't cry when giving me strength," he silently followed. And at some point, babies came into the world. The man hugged the baby and said, "Holy, you've worked hard. I'm really great," and held his hand tightly. At last, the bride and groom gave birth to each child in turn. It's a series. Births occurring at all different time points, but only in a few months. The village was ecstatic, even to the point of fanaticism. 3 babies were born in such a short period of time. Very good, that means the future generations will become richer. They congratulated them. Say that the life of this family has become stronger. Li Sungho, I felt the joy and responsibility of being a father. Frankly, it's hard to believe he's raising 3 newborn babies. But because the sisters are united, and the village community helped, so things are going well. Every morning, he would be woken up by the babies crying. But when he saw the cute frolicking of the children, his fatigue was gone. Now, the groom. The bride lives in the same yurt as Li Sungho. Take care of 3 children together. Because babies take turns waking up every night. So the 3 sisters take turns taking care of a baby. Sometimes, Li Sungho would hug and comfort 1 or 2. It's a kind of thing I would never have imagined. What happens in China? But here, it is common for several people to live in one yurt. And because the whole family is together to raise the child. So, it's not that difficult. Naturally, Li Sungho became very busy early in the morning. While the sisters are breastfeeding their babies, he would go out of the village to cut firewood or take care of livestock. When Li Sungho returned, sisters will report that you have worked hard. Our baby. That's how it is today. The elders of the village check in from time to time to see if the baby is healthy. And praised Li Sungho. Say he's such an amazing man. He's still working hard at his age. Sometimes the Olympics hum Chinese pop songs. Put your baby to sleep. Dagar was like an adult. Even when raising children. We will also plan responsibly. And worry about how to get a little older when they're a little older. Prepare your clothes. Or how to get cow's milk or formula. The man looked at the baby silently and quietly. And at some point, he will whisper to Li Sungho. Say, he is grateful that he holds the children of the family like this. In such everyday life, Li Sungho felt like he was being reborn. He left behind the pain and stagnation of divorce in China. In a completely different place. A completely different family was built. In addition, due to 3 newborn babies, at the same time born with his seed, He has become a man he never imagined, the center of the extended family. Sometimes I miss civilization. Korean food comes to mind. Comfortable shower facilities and internet connection. But the innocent smiles of the sisters and children. Let the regrets disappear. Also, there is no stiff competition here. There are no worries about money. There is no company boss either. Of course, there is a risk of difficult physical labor and natural disasters. But there's a warmth of community living together. As newborn babies become more stable, and postpartum recovery was achieved, Lee Sung-ho began to talk to his sisters in earnest, discuss the issue of long-term residence. Now the kids are growing up a little bit. We should not think in terms of education and all aspects. City life. Ayun positively agreed. I want to go to the city for a stay. Teach children to write. Dagar cautiously agreed. Say there are no schools or hospitals in our village. So at some point, go to town. Or at least the proximity to the town might be right. The man nodded slightly. The problem, however, is a matter of money and law. Even if you only move within Mongolia, you also have to go to Ulaanbaatar to find a house or room. And the cost of living won't be that easy. Also, if Lee Sung-ho is thinking about going to South Korea, then things like the children's birth certificates and sisters' visas and other complex administrative procedures could become a problem. Zargala said, if you want, I want to go out with you. Country, but all three of us must go at the same time. There are also 3 children. He shook his head. Li Xinghao thinks, this is not yet the stage to make a decision. First of all, let's make the kids do better here. And when they are a little older and can move, discuss him in detail again. I can go back to Korea. Prepare a certain amount of money. Or I can live in a Mongolian city first. He suggested. The sisters all agree with this point of view. The village elders also said, if raising a child becomes inconvenient for you, you can leave and go to town on your own. We want you to stay, but we guarantee freedom at work. Li Xinghao was a little moved by these words. On the other hand, he was also sorry. Even if he leaves one day, will they be okay too? But they seem to be adaptable, because they have been for a long time. Have experienced outside men coming in and leave only the child's case. In the end, Lee Sung-ho and the groom and bride, as well as newborn babies under one roof, live as a big family, and continued the community life of the village. When the baby is about 1 year old, it's noisy here. But when Lee Sung-ho sees the sisters taking turns taking care of them, he was delighted. There is a kind of peace here that he cannot achieve in South Korea. Family harmony. These days, he sometimes drove an SUV around the city, or at least find a hospital in town. Vaccinate him. Every time 3 sisters and 3 children accompany him. The car was crowded. In the hospital, the doctor smiled and said, oh, a father has 3 newborn babies at a time. It's amazing. Lee Sung-ho's language is not very fluent, but he can communicate roughly, because the sisters will translate. In this way, he also interacted with the outside civilization little by little. Gave birth even in the village. 3 babies. So there are a lot of experiences. The adults were satisfied. Say they've been listening to the cry for a long time. The house was full of children. Li Xinghao has also arrived without hesitation. Exchanged drinks with several people from the village. And the stage of joking. He is no longer a stay of only a few days. Just leave the traveler. Rather, I feel like a real member now. Sometimes at night, he would build a fire in front of the yurt. Look up at the stars. Lee Sung-ho thought. That's how my life unfolded. I was at the same time given the freedom I so craved. And new love and responsibility. Even in strong winds. The bride and groom were next to him. The children are sleeping. Yurt. It also feels like one. Cannot be exchanged with anything in the world. Of the refuge, noisy and complex civilizations seem to have long been forgotten. The land and winds of Mongolia embraced him. Sometimes, he was frustrated that there was nowhere to go back. But now, at least in this place, there are 3 wives and 3 children who are called the family. When I think about it, my heart warmed. I felt a new sense of responsibility and hope. The family would continue to exist for decades, until the children grow up. This inland district will take care of them. Lee Sung-ho himself will be in the process. Find a new meaning of happiness. They all left for the city, go to South Korea, or live forever on the prairie. It has not yet been determined, but life always follows an unpredictable path. What matters is sincerity and bond now. If Lee Sung-ho and 3 seeds and children have taken root in each other, well, no matter where they are or what they do, the fact that they are a family will not change. In the interior of Mongolia, the district, the seasons flow harshly. In winter, it can reach tens of degrees below zero. In the summer, high temperatures and sandstorms hit. Nomads have adapted and lived in it. Similarly, Lee Sung-ho, his 3 sisters and their children. There are many challenges that may lie ahead. Children can get sick. Financial hardship may arise, or a natural disaster may occur. But they will overcome it hand in hand, in the name of the family, and through the customs with this Mongolian tribe, and community spirit. Together. Now, the newborn baby is crying in the yurt. The sisters busily comforted him. Lee Sung-ho also got up to help. When Ayun shouted, "I'll hug you today. So when you go and comfort that man's baby," Zargala said, "I'll prepare the meal." They look noodle for some reason. But it's a family. Warm and ordinary everyday life. Over there, there is a framework with a normal Korean family. A completely different look. But it's full of sincerity, caring for and cherishing each other more than anyone else. And so life goes on. In the depths of Mongolia's boundless steppes. Sunset. In the evening, twinkling stars covered the entire sky. Below him, in a yurt lit up with a small lamp, there was one who was once trapped in isolation. Men in their 50s. And a bride who must protect his family. Right now, there are also 3 babies who have just come into the world. This family may seem strange at first glance. In fact, it has become a precious relationship with each other. Outcomes have not been determined. There are many stories and choices that the family may go through. But one thing Lee Sung-ho realized was, you only live once. If you can achieve love and unity in any way, that's worth it enough. An encounter with the 3 sisters brought him the freedom and he's been looking for. Another form of liability. It was enough to change his life later in life. The result is an unconventional relationship that makes foreigners visit. Eventually, it brought new vitality to the interior of Mongolia. The sisters each passed by giving birth to a child. Successful continuation of the family. The villagers also blessed them. Lee Sung-ho is also considered to be a member of the village, and gradually take root in this land. One day, even if the children grow up and leave, to explore the wider world, on the grass, in the cabin, and the dedication that has been formed with the new sisters never change. Maybe one day, Lee Sung-ho will take his children to China. The people around you may be surprised at that time. Say impossible. A man and 3 sisters had children. But isn't life always an unpredictable adventure? At this moment, the stars are twinkling on the steppe. The yurt was filled with warmth and laughter from the family. What more could life ask for? Thank you for watching today.